Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. So obviously when I bring you on, there's Chicago stories and you have real keen insight to Chicago. And it's interesting because I think Caleb Williams is one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen in college. I think there's an Elway, a little Andrew Luck. He's like Josh Allen. He's not consistently accurate out of college. So you have to work on that with Josh Allen. Aaron Rodgers was very accurate in college. Certain guys are. That's not what he is. You got to sandpaper him. And when I talk about the Bears' dysfunction, you and I get it, you especially. We tend to think of Detroit, Loserville, and Cleveland. But because Chicago did have one of the great teams ever, and because they had Michael Jordan, and we've had Oprah and Siskel and Ebert, and it's a big city and everybody loves it, you tend to think, oh, the Bears are well-funded, the facilities are this, that's the outside. But take the audience to the McCaskies, the dysfunction of this organization since you've been a kid.
Yeah, I mean, they got an indoor practice facility with a roof that was high enough where you could hunt a football within the last decade. Like every other team in the league had it. So multiple practice facilities, like John Fox, to his credit, did kind of bring them forward, him and Ryan Pace, of like, hey, we need to upgrade these things. But like that's 2017 we're talking about here. So just in terms of the investment, the practice facilities, I mean, the old thing on the McCaskies back with the 85 Bears was that they would throw around, nickels like manhole covers. Like it is a historically cheap organization. They are owners that inherited it, right? It's a charter heritage franchise, but so their wealth is the Bears. They're not an oil tycoon. They're not real estate magnates. Their wealth is in this valuation of a football team that they don't have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars just sitting in cash from some other business. They're not the Walmart people. And so it's a big family. It's a dysfunctional family. It's been passed down. There's like 9 siblings. Some of them have no interest in football whatsoever and want to get out and want to cash in and liquidate. George McCaskey, who's kind of the face of it now, is self-admittedly just a fan. He's like, I know nothing about football. It's like, George, you've been doing this forever. Like, either learn something about football or stop saying that you don't know anything about football, because then you're like in the meetings hiring all these people. So there's countless examples of the historic dysfunction and the cheapness with the Bears. I do think it's gotten a lot better in the last 5 to 10 years, and the money has gotten so crazy with the national television contracts that it's harder to be cheap. There's some ways still, like, they were not going to hire Jim Harbaugh. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
They were not going to give someone $20 million a year, $15 million a year with that type of like ego and celebrity. They were just not prepared to do it.
Yeah.
And that is a huge bummer, because he wanted to be the Bears coach, or he was at least very intrigued by being the Bears coach for the last like 2 hiring cycles. So it holds them back in some ways for sure. Ryan Poles, I think, is really smart, and I think he's been a very good hire overall. I would not have kept Matt Eberflus. I think that was a mistake when they got the number 1 draft pick with Caleb Williams. I would have lined up Caleb Williams with the best offensive head coach you could get, because my thing was like, by definition, you are limiting your talent pool. Like, you're only able to hire coordinators for Caleb, who then could leave to go be head coaches somewhere else. Whereas if you fire Matt Eberflus, I think Ben Johnson leaves Detroit. Like, that would have been pretty good. Like, if you don't get Harbaugh, Ben Johnson, he leaves your division rival and he comes and coaches Caleb. That's a pretty good spot to be in. So I thought keeping Eberflus was a mistake. And what I'm afraid of right now is not Caleb Williams. I think his talent is so undeniable that he actually will be able to overcome some of the stink of the Bears. We've seen that before. Like Josh Allen, to use your example, he's had a defensive head coach in Sean McDermott. He's had one guy who was maybe a borderline top 5 receiver in Stephon Diggs. Other than that, not much in terms of elite playmakers. Terrible.
Just got a run game. Just got one this year.
Yeah, and that's his what? I mean, he had Dable and Dorsey, and now he's got Brady. So he's had 3 different play callers, defensive head coach, terrible drafters. Took him a couple of years, but the talent was undeniable that he got there. So the Chargers have changed over a bunch with Justin Herbert. Bad coaches, different play callers. He hasn't won big, but as a talent has overcome it. So I think Caleb is going to be fine. What I am worried about, though, is when it was John Fox with Mitch Trubisky, everyone knew that Fox was not going to be the guy for Mitch long term, but they didn't want to fire him a year early and pay him to go away. So it was John Fox and Dowell Loggins for a year of Mitch Trubisky. Then they fired the whole staff and hired Matt Nagy. So now it's 2 systems in 2 years. And that put Mitch Trubisky behind the 8 ball. And then they did the exact same thing with Justin Fields. He was there for 1 year of Matt Nagy, and then they fired him, and they moved on to the next guy. And so then Justin Fields had 2 systems in 2 years. 2 different, went from Matt Nagy to Luke Getsy. So now you're learning 2 different offenses, 2 different play callers, 2 different sets of, ideas and fundamentals. And so if this doesn't work and you end up firing Eberflus and Shane Waldron, it will be the exact same thing that you did to your last 2 first-round pick quarterbacks. And that just, I don't care who it is, it stunts your development to not have continuity of coaching. So I'm not worried about the talent. I am absolutely worried about the coaching around him. And the line is clearly regressing and even worse than it was supposed to be. But I think a lot of that is also Shane Waldron, because, and I'm giving you a long answer, but you wanted all of the context. They were the 2nd ranked rushing team in the NFL last year. It's the 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are the exact same. And in theory, they upgraded at center, though it looks like they maybe somehow downgraded and Ryan Bates has been hurt. But that's not all Justin Fields. Like Khalil Herbert, Herbert was a 5-yard per carry guy. So like I would have told you coming into the year, Kevin Jenkins, their left guard, Nate Davis, their right guard when he plays, and Darnell Wright, their right tackle, who was the 10th overall pick, all better run blockers than pass blockers. And they're the worst running team in the NFL.
Yes, there's no question the O-line has significantly regressed, and most of those guys were young ascending players.
Right. And so to me, I don't believe that these guys just forgot how to run block. I think that there's something in, and I'm not able to tell you what it is, but I think Shane Waldron clearly is not doing a good job. Like another example, week 1, Gerald Everett out-snapped Cole Kmet. That makes no sense. It makes no. Cole Kmet, top 10 tight end in the NFL for sure. Young, athletic, good blocker, good pass catcher, coming off the best season of his career. Homegrown kid, under contract in his athletic prime. That made no sense. And they corrected it in week 2 and week 3. And week 3 he had a monster game. But it's like, how do I know more about the personnel of the Bears than Shane Waldron does? And I get that there's a learning curve, but come on, man, you're a professional coach making 7 figures. So I think Shane Waldron's been a disaster through 3 weeks, and I hope that he can correct it.
Well, I think sometimes we all know there's about 6 great coaches in the NFL and about 6 great quarterbacks. Well, there's maybe 6 great coordinators. Like, for instance, Brian Flores for the Vikings defensively is a great coordinator. Just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud the last 2 weekends have said, I've never seen any of these coverages. I don't even know what I was looking at.
Yep.
Like Brock Purdy is one of the cognitive guys in this league that is Sam Darnold played with him for a year, and Darnold's like, I've never seen anybody that good at the line of scrimmage. Like he's, it's almost like on the spectrum. Like you're like, how does he know that? Like he's just different. There's a Rain Man quality. Like how does he memorize all this stuff? So Brian Flores, Viking defensive coordinator, he's just better. Shanahan is an offensive coordinator. He made Matt Schaub. Brian Hoyer had a winning record. I don't think people think about this. It's like when you get in a plane, about every 6th pilot is great. The rest of them are guys. They take off, they land. They're not doing Sully on the Hudson. They would have crashed that plane into the Tappan Zee Bridge of the Hudson. They would have hit a bridge. And so I think when I watch the Bears and I look at their talent, would the Bears have, like, Washington spent big money on Kingsbury? Like, the new owners, I mean, I know they went after Sean Payton. Money was not an object with Washington. Now, it just so happens the Denver owners are richer than the Washington owners, but Kingsbury, like, got top dollar. I wonder about the Bears. Is it like, because I look at it and I think to myself, Brian Flores, he got fired. Maybe he got a discount, but I always feel like some organizations don't hire well.
It's undeniable, man. And first-time coaches are cheaper, and you don't fire early because you don't want to have dead money on guaranteed contracts, like paying guys not to work for you. That is a place where you can win. I'm saying in the margins. That's not to minimize coaching. It's just the Packers can spend the same as the Jaguars, who can spend the same as the Cowboys, who could spend the same as the Rams in free agency, because there's a salary cap, right. There's a salary floor on players. But that is a place, coaching, where there's no cap, that you could just throw cash at the problem and get the best. Right. And that is a place where ownership can make a difference. And that's why I said, like, Harbaugh was just not on their list. They were not willing to do it. And so, yeah, I definitely think that they go cheap in that regard. And that's undeniably an issue. Now, but I got to be fair, man. Like, once they said they were keeping Eberflus, I thought that Shane Waldron's resume made sense. He had been a play caller before, and he had top, the 11th ranked offense, the 16th ranked offense, the 17th ranked offense with Geno Smith. And I was like, okay, I've seen the Bears hire first-time play callers my whole life. At least this guy has done it. And he was a part of the thing that rejuvenated Geno Smith, put him in the comeback player of the year conversation, 30 touchdown guy. I was like, if he can turn a mid-level talent into a high performer, imagine what he could do with a high-level performer or a high-level talent in Caleb Williams. So I was upset that they were in the situation where they could only interview people for the coordinator spot, but I actually thought on paper at the time that it made sense. So I'm very down on how it's looked through 3 games. I'm not completely writing it off, but they could fire him at the end of this year for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you were optimistic with Shane Waldron taking Geno to the 16th best offense. Kevin O'Connell has made Sam Darnold Joe Namath in his prime.
Well, that's
the gap I'm talking about.
Yes, no, really, that's why I wanted an offensive head coach. Yes, exactly. Well, and man, the NFC North, like Matt LaFleur. Okay, Matt LaFleur. People were legitimately having the conversation of if Aaron Rodgers was done like 6 or 7 years ago. Matt LaFleur replaces Mike McCarthy. He gets 2 more MVPs and a couple of NFC Championship game appearances out of Aaron Rodgers. Then Jordan Love comes in and is instantly awesome, and he gets $225 million. And then Jordan Love gets hurt. Malik Willis had been in the building for 19 days, and he is undefeated with Matt LaFleur. They put up 30 this past week. You got Kevin O'Connell doing that in Minnesota, and you got Ben Johnson doing what he's doing in Detroit. There are damn good offensive coaches in the NFC North. Like, Shane Waldron is a distant 4th, which was another reason why I was like, you've got to hire an offensive head coach to try to compete with these guys.